Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As always, there have to be a couple of last minute tech problems, but I think we're through the tech challenges now. Welcome. This is the fourth in our climate conversation series for this 2025-2026 winter season. I'm John Siddle, co-chair of Bath Climate Action Commission. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'd particularly like to thank our partners, the Passive Free Library, of course, and Kennebec Estuary Land Trust. And before we start, there's a little necessary admin that we always have to go through. First, mark your calendars for our next event. April 8th, we'll be having an event on emerald ash borer in cooperation with the Community Forestry Committee. Tonight's presentation and discussion will be recorded, so you and your friends can view it again on the library's YouTube channel if you wish. And I'll also warn you, be aware, if you choose to make comments to your neighbors, the overhead microphones will. As far as the format for this evening goes, we'll begin the evening with a presentation from our guest speakers and follow that with a Q&A period. We're in a hybrid session with attendees both here in person and on Zoom. If those of you on Zoom, who I hope can hear me, have questions, you can submit them through the chat function, and Ruth over here will help us keep track of all of them. The library closes promptly at 7 p.m., so we will aim to wrap up by around 6:45 to let all of you say your final goodbyes. Now, let me tell you a little bit about tonight's presentation. Envision Resilience. Envision Resilience is a nonprofit that fosters student-community partnerships aimed at reimagining climate challenges and inspiring resilient solutions to those challenges. To stimulate planning that's both innovative and relevant, they sponsor student faculty teams to undertake urban and landscape architecture design projects in collaboration with communities like ours. It's a win-win. We get great ideas from them, and students get real-world experience. The program is now in, I believe, its 5th year. And during fall semester, they had teams both here in Bath and in Harpswell. We were fortunate to work with teams from Maine, Augusta, UMass Amherst, Northeastern, Virginia School of Architecture, and the Maine College of Arts and Design. Overviews of their work are on displays throughout the library. Many of you that were here a little earlier had the chance to look around and see some of them, and those exhibits will remain until August. Finding them is, I'll warn you, finding them is a little bit like hunting for Easter eggs, but it's just as rewarding, I assure you. They're scattered around the library, but primarily in the fiction stacks. Similarly, in Harpswell, there'll be similar exhibits at both the Orr's Island and the Cundy's Harbor libraries. The final studio report from this project will be available in April, and this evening we'll be getting a preview of some of their ideas. If any of your friends and neighbors missed this evening's event, Envision Resilience will also be hosting a Bath community opening event this Friday, the 13th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Union & Co. If you're interested in learning more about the Harpswell ideas, they're also hosting a Harpswell community opening event tomorrow from 5 to 7 at Bowdoin College's Schiller Coastal Studies Center in Harpswell. Finally, last but certainly not least, we have Envision Resilience to thank for all the snacks and the swag that you'll find back in the room. Please help yourselves. We'll start this evening with a presentation from Charlotte Van Voorhees, the Community Engagement Manager for Envision Resilience. I'll let her tell us more about the program and introduce her teammates. Please join me in welcoming them to Bath and this evening's climate conversation.
Thank you so much, John. It's been so great to work with you and Paul over about a year plus or 2 years now. Like John said, I'm Charlotte Van Voorhees, Envision Resilience's Community Engagement Manager. With me is Claire Martin, our executive director, and our esteemed advisors, Carolyn Cox and Bob Nicholas as well. So I'll kick it over to Claire to start off our presentation. Thanks so much.
We might need to steal your elevator pitch for our program. That was, you reworded it all, and it's always fun to hear it back. So thank you. A big thank you to the Patent Free Library, to Hannah, to John and Paul and the the Bath Climate Action Commission. It's really exciting to be here in community with you all and really kick off what is 3 days of events with student design imagining. I also want to thank Brian, local artist and curator of the exhibition here at the Patent Free Library, the 2 libraries in Harpswell, and what you'll see at Union & Co. Anyone else? I also want to thank the community, the community of Bath. The work, as John so well said, this is about student and community partnerships working together to imagine more resilient futures. And the work that we do would not be possible without the community partners, people, spaces and places that really embrace this kind of work and invite us in for a real dynamic, deep dive, iterative process. So big thank you to the community of Bath. Thank you. Before we get started, before tonight, who had known about Envision Resilience before? Have you heard of us? A little show of hands. Okay, well, that's fun. Anyone who had not heard murmurings about our work and our process until tonight? Great, okay. So who are we? What do we do? Over the last 5 to 6 years, we have been convening students, as you can see, through a variety of these pictures in communities throughout the Northeast to work in tandem with community stakeholders, leaders. These are folks in planning. I didn't give Rod the reason we're here today. A thank you as well. So folks like Rod, local artists, ecologists, people who have expertise in very specific areas, but also understand and know what it means to live, play, work, and recreate in these places that the students are coming in and studying. So there's a trusted relationship that is built up throughout our process, which we'll get into. But over the years, we've been working through a network of networks to work our way up the coast. The program started in Massachusetts. We did this program in Rhode Island. And for the last 3 years, we've had the great opportunity to learn from and work with folks in Maine. As Sean said, Bath and Harpswell marked the 5th year of our program, and we are currently underway in phase 1 of year 6 of our program in Lewiston, Auburn. Yeah. We're a big organization. The Envision Resilience Challenge is our signature program. It's this design studio initiative that works in tandem with communities. Unlike a traditional design studio semester that is, 10 to 12 weeks in length, a bit of a tight window, our team elongates that process on either end. And so from start to finish, we're looking at really 2 years of engagement through a variety of phases.
So the first phase, as Claire said, is our kind of community and stakeholder engagement, design to itself, and then where we are today, the exhibition and community program. We get into more. Over the past 5 years, we've had the great opportunity to work with over 500 students and sort of pair their brain trust with over 115 community partners who've donated their time and energy and expertise to the students to really ground their work in the authenticity of the places that they call home. Through that process, we've gotten to also work with 20 universities over our 5 years in each of the study sites along the East Coast.
And from those 20 universities, one thing that a student said one time that has always stuck with me, yes, a lot of these students are coming from away. They are studying at a university that might be in Virginia or in Massachusetts, and now they're doing work in Maine. We also do work with local Maine universities. But the thing that a student shared that has always stuck with me, while they might not be from here, they are from a community in which they have grown up in and they've learned from and they've maybe worked in and they've stewarded. And so they bring a very unique lens. Maybe it's global, maybe it's regional, and they can bring their own expertise, meet with partners like the community stakeholders out here, and pair that for a new kind of thinking, kind of sparking new ideas, hearing and understanding from community partners where the challenges and opportunities might be, and then applying both their, whether it's urban design, architecture, landscape architecture, expertise, and also their own lived experience. So I think that's important to note that, yes, maybe these students are not from Bath, but there is a community they come from that they love and respect.
Yeah, so as we said, we've got sort of a lot that goes into each of those three phases. Throughout phase one of the challenge, over the first year of being at any particular site, we meet with various stakeholders. We bring those conversations back into a challenge brief, which then goes out to our university partners who will apply to work in a specific community because they're excited about the issues going on and the opportunities that that community has to work with. We then bring those communities, academic partners together for a faculty workshop, meeting on the ground with folks like Rod, like John, and Paul. And then they start their design studio semester, bringing the students back to site and working in their studios to build models, make sketches, and sort of get to know the communities in their own design student lens. Then in our phase three, which is over the winter and spring of this year, we have our community events. Brian installs the exhibition in the library, and then we have meetings such as this one to bring our design work back to the community.
Our video's on now. Yeah, great shot.
Yeah, so throughout our community engagement, these are some action shots of us as a team, meeting with folks like Rod and Misty, walking around the riverfront, meeting outside of City Hall. Of course, our team takes food very seriously, so we stop for ice cream in Harpswell before exploring Mitchell Field. And we even, with the UVA students, attended a fisheries committee meeting with a model that the UVA students had built of the Harpswell coastline to better engage with the fisheries committee itself. We have some more. Oh, and so the community partners, the ones that make this work really possible. One of my favorite parts about my job is getting to meet with one person, sort of, Rod, we must have met with you a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And from there, Rod says, well, you've got to talk to these three people, and soon our network grows. Grows so much, you can't hardly see it anymore. So here are some folks who have generously donated their time to meet with students, to walk around Bath, the city that they love, and sort of explain some of the projects that they have going on. So we've gotten to work with the city of Bath, Bath Housing, GMRI, Maine Maritime Museum, Kennebec Estuary Land Trust, Bike and Pedestrian Committee, as well as our partners at Union & Co. And Midco Student Center, and just so many others. This is just a small snapshot of the types of folks who've opened their hearts to our program and our students. So thank you all so much. We cannot express our thanks enough.
And then come the university partners. So this is where our student partnerships and our community partnerships come together. As I think John mentioned, this opportunity for a design studio to take place in such a time kind of sensitive but also in-depth way is a really amazing professional development opportunity for these students. They are put in front of a fisheries committee. They're not just designing in a silo where, sure, presenting on a nature-based infrastructure solution for Harpswell is effective, but have they asked the local fishermen? Have they talked to them? Have they engaged? And so we get to partner with these really incredible leading faculty and researchers who are already doing climate adaptation research in a very innovative and forward-thinking way, who then see a framework like ours and want to partner. So this year, as was said, we worked with 5 partners, 2 local Maine universities. It will come back to the Maine College of Art and Design Partnership, which is a public art partnership and adds another element to the work that we do. When we start engaging, so now we've done a whole phase 1, a lot of coffee chats, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of visits to Bath and Harpswell, and we then convene the faculty. So all of the research and foundations that our team has laid are grounded in conversation with community stakeholders. Your comprehensive plan from 2023 was a huge lens through which we had the faculty and their student teams look. The idea is that while students might design anything from a very implementable wet floodproofing concept to something very pie in the sky visionary, to the best of our ability, we're asking these students to design for what the community wants and needs. We want them to bring things that are additive to projects in the pipeline. We want them to imagine within the both current zoning and regulatory landscape, but also imagine at the same time what could be in the face of urban heat, increased transportation infrastructure issues, food insecurity, all through the lens of climate change. So by grounding that problem statement in the work that's been done at the city level, the idea is that we get an outcome, as you've seen hopefully downstairs or can engage with, that feels reflective of history, culture, and values, but also possibilities for a community. So the workshop was site visits, conversations. We got to explore the Kennebec by boat and lots of walking tours.
So here's sort of a graphic representation. We have worked with a number of creative artists, including Brian, and also our graphic facilitators, Tamara Carhart and Felipe Alvarez. And they have taken all of the conversations that we had at that 2-hour faculty workshop convening with stakeholders and turned that into a graphic representation of where our conversation started. We also have the real life notes over on this wall if you're curious to explore more. But as Claire said, this is sort of the lens through which the students, the faculty ground their studios and the students started designing. So after the faculty workshop, after the summer has gone by and students come back all tan and ready to learn, we bring them to site for site visits. This year they happened in September. And we had the great privilege of convening an awesome panel of community leaders to talk to the students and answer their direct questions about how to imagine a resilient Bath in the future. So we have worked with Seiler Climate Consulting, Gail from GMRI, Seth from Bath Housing, and then Jen, Rod, and Misty from the City of Bath. So the students had a really sort of VIP session with these folks to ask their questions directly and hear some really thoughtful and difficult answers to the types of design questions and the wicked problems that these students and practitioners and professionals are facing every day.
If you want to kind of take a tour through what the student site visits were, this map, which is also from our creative partners who have done the graphic illustration throughout the semester, these maps identify, if anyone who has them in front of them, the various areas throughout both Bath and Harpswell that the university teams and students focused on.
So some more action shots of our site visits, including walking around Bath. We stopped at Union & Co. to hear from Sean and Mandy. We walked by Bath Ironworks. Yes, we did catch the shift change, pretty inspiring, as well as Patent Free Library itself, and then our team at the end of a great site visit in Bath.
Again, coming back to, yes, think big, think bold, think visionary is the goal of the student design program. And how can we ensure that those designs have been, that the designs you'll see downstairs feel reflective of your community at the midterm point of the semester. So 6-8 weeks into it, once they've done a lot of research, they've grounded it in place, they've done the site visits, they've had their own pinups in studio with professors, they present to a group of local stakeholders. This is where the critique and the feedback is really instrumental in fine-tuning what those final design concepts, the research might look like. They might say, yes, that's a great idea, but you took out that park bench from your rendering that has been in the community for years, and we need that there. So it's the local place-based reflection that this group can bring to a midterm review that is so essential to the way in which the final designs come out. Similarly, we have a final jury review. This is at the end of the semester. This is when we bring in leading practitioners in all sorts of fields, mostly planning, architecture, and landscape architecture to also review and critique the student designs. And I think that what we find at this point in the semester, the jurors feel almost reinvigorated and re-inspired in their own work, that they see the really creative, thought-provoking ideas from students, and it reminds them of why they got into the field. They often say, don't lose the sense of both urgency and optimism in your design career. So it's a very nice one moment of kind of, it's not the end of the program, but it's a nice moment in it.
Yeah, and so if anyone is curious to hear what the students presented on in their design work, in addition to what's on display in the library, you can scan this code. Warning, it is a 5.5-hour Zoom, so no need to go through all of it if you don't want to. But there are select parts that are very informative as to what each student, each university worked on.
A plug to call on our advisor, Bob Miklos, who probably has watched the review recordings more than anyone out there. So he could probably give you some great highlights of that if you want to find him in the kind of after conversation piece.
Absolutely. All right, so phase 3, we finally made it to today. What's on display at the Patent Free Library? The next few slides, we have a few of the student designs, just sort of a taste of what is on display below, and we'll talk more about that. First, though, just a quick overview before getting into the renderings themselves. The opportunities that come with these designs are to think a bit outside the box, to spark conversations and to talk about the innovation, inspiration, and sort of fresh ideas that these students, some of them from away, some of them from Maine, might have to offer. They're not necessarily meant to be definitive or prescriptive or be a sort of implementable tomorrow idea. We're not trying to sort of say this is what must happen, but rather here are some options and some strategies that could be used. And lastly, here are the sort of thematic elements that the student designs in both Bath and Harpswell have fallen into. So you'll see downstairs in the historic section of the library, we have 2 kind of panels with student designs for each of these different themes down below. So here's one design from a student, Nick, at University of Massachusetts Amherst. And sort of to describe his work in his own words, this project seeks to create a multimodal corridor as well as to engage with the riverfront as shaped by sea level rise to create opportunities to experience and connect with the water. So Nick's renderings as well as some of his sort of specific site plans are down below. But here are some of the more, what could the future look like in the future. If you want to. Okay. And then we have 2 students from Northeastern who focus more on different housing typologies throughout the city of Bath, and the whole Northeastern team had an asset-based mindset throughout their semester, asking how can we take advantage of what makes Bath and the region special today in order to create a thriving tomorrow. So they looked at various scales from the entire watershed down to specific parcels, and used a varied analysis of Bath to kind of overlay different maps, which showed what sort of regions of Bath were most ripe for different kind of development or adaptation opportunities. And you can see more of their designs downstairs as well. But here are
the Northeastern model, the Northeastern team also produced 3D models of those various housing typologies, and those will be on display on Friday night at Union & Co. And we'll have students from Northeastern there as well.
Yeah. And so then lastly, Marcella is from Maine herself. And so she created some of these models and renderings that show, again, what sort of a community where food access and intergenerational housing sort of knitted together in one sort of housing type. That's her example. Okay.
Union & Co. on Friday night is a continuation of the design work that you'll see here and an opportunity to meet with some of our student teams and our faculty. On display there is a lot of the work from the Maine College of Art and Design, which we'll skip ahead to here, not imagining that anyone is going to be able to read that from where they're seated. It's on display at Union & Co. But this project to us, so public art and art as a means of storytelling and communicating about challenging topics, particularly climate change, has been really core to our work over the last 5 to 6 years. And working with university partners that have art programming has been something that we've been very flexible to. And we had the opportunity this past year to work with the Maine College of Art and Design. And this project in particular is what Envision is. A student, Nicole, found an opportunity, found one phone number in a phone book and started calling around, and I'll let Charlotte get the details, but this has led to a long-term sustained partnership with Bath Housing and this art student who will now do her thesis project on roots and swings, which you can see on full display, but we can give a little teaser here.
Yeah, so Nicole kind of imagined a creative reuse of the old cross from do you remember from this church, that working with Bath Housing, turning the cross into actually swings and bringing in the youth perspective from Mid-Coast Youth Center. So like Claire said, she called up one person, she got in touch with the woodworker, she got in touch with someone who could transport the wood, she got in touch, she sort of has an entire network of her own outside of Envision Resiliences around Bath. And at Union Co. on Friday night, you can see her sort of proof of concept mini swings, as well as some real life swings on display there. So her kind of project explains more about that partnership. But again, yeah, a way to imagine a resilient future, bringing in multiple stakeholder groups and bringing sort of a bunch of different community partners together around one idea through art.
And to round that out, art really was the original intent of this program at the very beginning. Communities on the front lines of climate change, everyone still is grappling with how do we address these problems? How do we galvanize a community to think differently, to think more optimistically? This is not all doom and gloom. There are pathways forward. There are a variety of pathways forward, in fact. And so we believe that before you can begin to work toward that, you have to be able to imagine and visualize it. And that is really what the intention, one of the intentions of these design renderings are, and we hope that those inspire each of you in your own ways. Again, it's not intended to be a one-size-fits-all prescriptive solution. At the end of the day, when the studio report comes out, it's an entire catalog of design ideation, toolkits, mapping, research that we hope can inform projects in the pipeline, ideas in the future, and yeah, be an inspiration for the ways in which Bath already is a very forward-thinking, resilient community to move that forward.
So how to engage with Envision Resilience this work. If you like what you've heard tonight or are curious to learn more, we have a number of exhibits up at Cundy's Harbor Library, Orr's Island Library here at Patent Free, and at Union Co. down the street. On Friday night, we also invite you to meet the students themselves and hear them explain in much more eloquent and articulate detail their projects than what we've explained tonight, but as well to ask them any questions. They, like Claire has said, they're working on their professional development skills as they enter this field, and your feedback, your questions, and your comments are going to be incredibly valuable for them to hear as well. There's also the Envision Resilience map if you're curious to see some of the sites that the students have thought about and are working on. And then in addition, we have upcoming sort of 2025 Mid-Coast Maine Studio Report. Here we have in person a physical example of our 2024 Studio Report, if you want to pass those around, just to see the kind of comprehensive collection of student design work, as well as a further explanation of our programming. So again, if you want to look at it online, you can scan this QR code to explore the 2024 report. But now that we're through all of the different phases of our core program, our team is hard at work compiling all of that, those student designs into a concrete material report that you can peruse at your leisure at the library, as well as our various exhibit sites. Yeah, and again, we are here, we are around, not going anywhere. So please reach out and stay connected with us. The chaps are there. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
It's okay to ask questions?
Please,
Yeah.
please.
Have you had conversations with Sean Ireland, the chief developer of the Bowery Street old canning factory site? Because that's going to have a huge impact on Bath, depending on how that goes through. We're talking about 70-foot high elevations for housing. I wonder what your relationship is with them.
Sean gave a really dynamic presentation to the Northeastern and UMass Amherst and Augusta in September at Union Co. during their site visits. That was because of where they were in their project development. It didn't end up being one of the key sites of our student teams, but the conversation itself, I mean, and Sean was, he pressed the students on, asking questions, getting involved. So I think for that project they're working on, the process and the thinking behind it itself was actually very informative to the students, more so than them taking on that site as a potential project.
Some students, there are a couple of students who took that on as sort of, far out in the future, what could it look like? But yeah, it's like Claire said, they're so early on in there that it's not
Because there is debate going on in the city council now as to whether or not to approve changes to the zoning codes to allow that. And I think the debate will be somewhat heated.
As they do. I think the beauty of the student designs at the end of the day is that they help spark some of those debates. And at the end of the day, they're student designs and student thinkers. So when they can have the opportunity to engage, the fisheries meeting was a good example of putting them in a scenario. They'll have to defend their designs, and whether it's in the studio setting or in 5 years, 10 years, the firm they're working with or with the city that they're working with, they'll be in front of a town meeting, a city council debate. And so that experience, it's almost like the framework itself is more of an experience than the site project exploration.
But I could say there's one project in the Northeastern group that did a pretty thorough analysis and a very interesting proposal. I think much different than what Sean and Mandy are looking at. So that might be worth looking at. It's recorded in our final reviews.
And we'll be in the studio.
The Northeastern section.
I think there's a poster downstairs of it.
Yes.
So you're going on 6 years of this work, which is really amazing, and thank you for all of the work that you're doing. I'm really curious about design and human behavior. And because you're having your students really look at design as a way to change behavior in certain ways. And I'm wondering if you're tracking any of that, or you have any comments about that, or maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's we talk about that often. What audience are you talking about? Is it the community members themselves?
Community members. So like if these ideas for designs, do they help to modify people's behavior into maybe more climate friendly?
That is the goal. And we haven't tracked numerically, but anecdotally we can talk a lot about it. There are all sorts of stories in which the communities that we've worked in who have gone through a program of ours and then had the exhibition, engage with the students in the work, have a different set of language, tools, visuals that help them work toward the real world scenario. So now 6 years ago on Nantucket, there is a pretty extensive Washington Street Resilience Framework process happening. It's the land bank, it's the town of Nantucket, it's a number of local firms, private, public partnership. That's been happening. The project kicked off probably 4 years ago, and the student design ideation that also looked at Washington Street. It's a key corridor in and out of the downtown. It's the only street that trucks carrying food, fuel, what have you, can access. It's flooded, going on now probably close to 30 days a year. And the student designs, while maybe weren't exactly, they're not what we're seeing today, but those visuals people still reflect on. They say, well, remember, 5, 6 years ago, that team from Yale, they imagined X, Y, and Z, and now I see how this is playing into what Scape, pretty big landscape architecture firm is showing us today. So I think what our goal with this work is that by seeing and engaging with this kind of design thinking about what a future neighborhood, waterfront, park could look like, it kind of gets you from point A to point B.
Excuse me, you said Washington Street, did you mean Washington or Front Street?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is in Nantucket, so Washington Street. Yeah, but it's funny, there's a lot of similar street names in all the communities. Yeah. So
And in New Bedford, they did actually go back to the drawing board with the Parks and Rec.
Right, and
based on one of the student designs and adopt some of the ideas.
So that's where my question about which audience. So there's kind of the two big audiences that we, in addition to the students, it's the community at large, and that's where that was my first response. And to Carolyn's point, by working with municipalities, these planning departments, what maybe Parks and Rec, the example of where these plans, and actually not the design itself, but the mapping, the research, the analysis of where that floodplain was in a park in the North End neighborhood, at Riverside Park along the Acushnet River in New Bedford. The city of New Bedford Parks and Rec went back to the drawing board, as Carolyn said, with their plans to refresh a playground that was 20, 30 years old, and actually not just replace it, but relocate it. So they took they were able to tap into those student designs and the extensive work that was done to figure out where the floodplain was, and resubmit for a grant, and they got that grant. And then our organization was able to come in and match that grant because it was a direct outcome of the student community partnership.
Yeah, and Claire, if I could add something regarding the student process, what each studio did with the incredible leadership of their talented faculty before coming to a location, and this happened in every place that we looked at in Maine, the students did extensive research into the climate risk, the built and cultural heritage, the economic challenges, the housing challenges. So even though I would say the majority of our students coming to Portland or Bath or Harpswell had never been there before, or many of them had never been to Maine, but they came with a wealth of background knowledge that facilitated, I think, the conversation with the community, because they actually had some valuable information to share. All of you know about all these things, but they had a depth of research and diagrams and charts and things and maps that really helped facilitate that conversation. So what we found in each community is it helped to expand the community's exploration of adaptive strategies into the future. And of course, the students were allowed to do as practical a project as they wanted or as visionary as possible. Some of them, I would describe as science fiction, but it's interesting. Across every community, they really embrace the range of those ideas and the ability to imagine what your future reality could be like. So I think that's the value in it. And in every case, they have tremendous communication skills, both in how they're describing things, the way they map things, but also in their illustrations. Their illustrations have been second to none across all of our studios. And that's really been helpful for people in the community to understand, well, they ask, well, what is my waterfront going to look like in 20 years? Can you show me a picture of that? So all of that, I think, adds to the exploration for the community moving forward. So I think that's the real value of the student work. We never intended to do projects there that we could assign to the communities to implement, because that's not our purpose.
Yeah, I was just curious about, has there been or might there be a way of the students providing that wealth of background in a either an electronic or a physical form, so that it's all still there and it doesn't just disappear?
Right.
That's exactly why we have continued this program. In that, I think there are incredible design studios, and to no fault of anyone's, the semester ends and then, you're on to the next course, the faculty are teaching in another place. And so as a non-municipal or academic organization, we take that on. We are able to document, compile, and publish. So if you've seen the studio report go around, that's what you can expect for Bath and Harpswell, and it will be available online. So it's in a dream world, that would all be accessible in a more interactive way. We actually have some fellows thinking about that now, but right now it's in a kind of PDF published form, which does, as Bob mentioned or someone mentioned, there's a whole section on that early research, and it's really wonderful to see the way they sketch and imagine a place and then use that for their final design. So the book is broken down with the kind of mapping, analysis, research sections, and then you skip ahead to the various themes that the students explored, and then the really visionary, fun to look at visuals. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
I'd actually like to build on that question a little bit, because as I'm sure you know, first of all, you've got an incredible number of really exciting ideas from the students here. So this is great work. We love to have the opportunity to capture it, learn from it. But as I'm sure you know, there's a long history, not in your program, but more broadly, in efforts that result in a great report that ultimately ends up on the shelf gathering dust. And so my question, going a little bit beyond where you went a moment ago, is what have you learned in the last 5 years that will help us keep the conversation alive? Acting on this, continue to build on these ideas.
Your question alone is the answer in that you've asked that, Rod's asked that, you've all asked, what have we learned in the last 5 years, which has allowed us to pour more time and resourcing into expanding this and figuring where we're also trying to solve for that. What does it mean to have a living document that is a catalog for a community to, pour through? If we get a phone call in 10 years that someone says there are plans moving forward that actually tie into a student project, we'll be back up here, we'll sit down, we'll talk that out. How can we bring in some resourcing? What might that look like? So it's, I don't know if that's an exact answer to your question, but if you have ideas for us, we're also open to that. We've learned that the reason we started publishing these studio reports is for that reason, so that these can live on, the books will be in the community. To your point, it's a big catalog of ideas. And it's meant to be. It's meant to, at first and foremost, provoke this thinking of what could be. And then when you get down and really pour through the details of the specific projects and the sites that they took on, if and when those align with projects that whether a nonprofit organization is taking on or something at the city level is happening, again, without these exact student designs being prescriptive, we see them as a tool for community engagement. So, a lot of our faculty would probably be more than happy to talk further about any one design. We have a really engaged group of alumni, and it's a great opportunity for them to hop on a phone call to make a visit and talk further. So the idea is that this studio report, once it's published, that was kind of our what's next, because the question is always, well, now what happens? What gets implemented? And the goal is that we remain a resource. The studio report is given back to all of you, and it doesn't need to be next week, next month, next year, but when these ideas in the book resonate or could be beneficial to any project ongoing, you're on the other end of the phone.
Yeah,
Great,
yeah.
you'll still be answering the phone.
And Claire, can I add something to it? We've been doing this and we're familiar with the studio work, but there's so much detail, there's so much content, it's like overwhelming. I've rewatched the student presentations, maybe 50 hours of just understanding everything. But so our goal is to bring back any of those specific ideas or areas of investigation to the community. So Claire and I were just here 3 weeks ago with Portland, meeting with folks at Portland and South Portland, their planning departments, because they had specific interest in specific projects and the analysis in some of the different areas of risk, and wanted to learn more about that. So we're available to facilitate better understanding, to give them more depth of information on that, because there's just a whole lot of content, and I don't think anybody would sit and watch the 5 hours of final reviews, but it's really fascinating. There's a lot of great, and to hear the students themselves present their ideas, that's a really valuable thing. So we've captured all that in each of our iterations of the challenge.
One additional thing I would add, if and when there are job openings, job postings in any of these related fields, please share them with us, because we have this group of alumni. We just had Nora Massler, who was a 2022 Northeastern student during the Rhode Island Year Challenge, was just named Chief Long-Term Planning Officer for the town of Newton, Massachusetts. That's an amazing thing. She is someone who thinks one of our mission is to foster the next generation of leaders, designers, architects to think differently and holistically about these challenges. So we now have after this year, it'll be close to 600 students who have gone through the program. how neat would it be to see one of the students who worked on a project in Bath, whether it's next year or in 5 years, be part of your, city planning department or otherwise. I think think about that as well when opportunities come up.
Not to put you on the spotter, but to continue this conversation, I can foresee this as a resource moving forward, not only for the committee folks, the staff folks, but for the professional folks who work in town, architects, engineers. If there were a specific follow-up versus this is the report, have at it, is Envision Resilience around to get contacted by
Absolutely.
say a coastal resilience planner that wanted to follow up on a particular item
Yes.
to learn more about the background data that was put into it, or?
Absolutely. That's all built into our planning and bandwidth of, we want to have those conversations. Again, and I do want to stress that, as Bob said, it's a massive wealth of content. And
Yeah.
so I don't, this, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in 3 years, yes, we have an urgency around climate change, but we also know that you have a lot of work on your plate. And so we're around, and we would always make the drive, pick up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's having seen all of the background that went into each of the student projects, it really is, it captures so much. I mean, I can imagine being a small architecture firm that wanted to understand the typology of Bath housing, and all the work is handed to them on, from the work that's already been done.
And that's where we see, again, we're pretty uniquely positioned. We're not an architecture firm. We're not a municipality. We're not an academic institution. We can convene. We see where to connect the dots and draw people together. And so that's been a co-benefit that's come out of this program, that the spaces we've held, a workshop or a meeting or a site visit, people within a community have gotten together and connected. And if we can build on that in the way that you say of, someone sees it, calls you, and you can just come to us. You can say, chat with these folks. They want to. That's very much the ethos that we're trying to build here of convening, connecting. We see that we have that capacity to kind of shapeshift and connect people. So we're here for it.
So one of our final jury members grew up in Maine, is in an architecture firm in Maine, who works all over the place. And he watched the presentations and said, I have never known any of this stuff. I grew up here my whole life, but these students will just take a little nugget and they'll go down a rabbit hole like you can't believe. And people are blown away sometimes who have lived here and worked here in a professional capacity their whole life, are finding out new things about their hometown because of the incredible depth of research that some of these students dive into.
Yeah, and I think that benefit for us will just keep paying out over time too, having all of this work that happened here.
Well, nobody else has the time
Yeah.
to just dive that deep on one little
Wasn't money
topic.
to save.
Yeah.
So I have to share a short story. I mean, we were always concerned coming here, bringing these students from all these different places, and Claire really has it right that a lot of them are coming from coastal communities, but in completely different worlds and environments. So the concern we always had is all of you are really involved with these issues. And I mean, like, who are we to bring a group of kids that have never been here before to try to tell you, how to deal with these issues? But every community we've come to in Maine and coastal New England, the folks here, and this was really the case in Bath and Harpswell, really embraced our students. In Portland, we had a team really from away, Toronto, the first time we had it international, 9 students, not a single one had ever been to Maine. So this was like life-changing. So they came here and they were just so overwhelmed by the environment, and none of them had ever eaten lobster in their life. So the first thing we did was took them to the harbor front. They all had lobster. They became just obsessed with lobster and lobstering and the whole thing amazed. So they went back to Toronto. They're like almost Mainers from their experience. It was fantastic to see that.
had students who've never been on a plane before getting to fly to these sites. It really is through the generosity and openness of their communities. It really is, like Bob said, life-changing for students who are involved in their
Check in with Ruth.
Oh, yeah.
If you have any online.
Oh, yeah.
questions.
We can,
program. Okay. How are we doing on time?
it is, we've got plenty of time.
Great.
Yes. I might suggest if folks haven't gone down to see the work yet, our team, it's Charlotte, myself, Bob, Carolyn, Brian, if anyone wants to look at what's on display here and kind of talk further, that could be a good use of time. Is the downstairs still open to walk
Yes,
through?
yes, it is.
Okay. So unless there are other questions.
Yeah.
What's the easiest way to find out more specifics on one of the particular items in this brochure?
Great question.
I think I would suggest coming on Friday to meet with the students themselves.
And all of these guys will be here for
Not
us.
all of
Not
them,
all of
but
But the faculty will.
the faculty all will be, and they'll be able to talk more to that. And then the studio report that will be coming out in a couple months will be.
Then creating.
A little bit of a teaser in the meantime.
A little bit of teaser, yeah.
It's mostly to depict like the vast, the kind of the breadth of student site exploration. But students will have name tags and be pretty identifiable. There will be different tables with the universities, and so they'll be able to answer great questions.
One quick question.
Yes.
The information that you're all providing, excuse me, where is that going to be stored or kept?
All
Made
on the
available?
website. It's all open source.
On the website.
And
So-
we can give you some of these are the specific links, but our website is a little clunky. It's getting revamped, but it's all there. And if I can give you, if we have your email or vice versa, we can send you point you to specific links. But everything that you should want to know
But it's.
is there and will be there. The only thing forthcoming, as you said, and it's actually Bath and Harpswell will have this shortest lead turnaround. Shortest turnaround, thank you, between the studio itself and the studio report. So we're expecting that to be ready by May. And that will be live on our website reviewing, but mostly everything can be found on the website.
So it won't be hard copy.
Oh, and there will be hard copies. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Great question. The hard copies, once they're published in May, will be at each library site.
Okay.
And maybe sprinkled throughout. I'm sure we'll give some to the various offices and organizations we've worked with. So they should be kind of readily available throughout the community.
Great. So as you heard, we have a little bit of time left before the library closes. So if you'd like to go explore